We're recording. Okay, so you're froze up again, but that's a better picture than it was. So
Thanks.
The last one you were froze up with your finger jammed up to your brain, jammed up there working on that, right? Okay, so what are we going to talk about? First off, our book. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel very satisfied with the amount of tweaking that we did toward the end. I mean, it was just polishing, off toward the end. The whole package, though, we've hammered that out over the years, and I think the time we invested in playtesting and having various people at the table, and I still remember us going through all the machinations of like when we did took the hit points off, switched that, and I think it was a process of refining it. I think we started with where we knew we wanted to end up, and it was just through playtest that we refined it. And then I felt like toward the end, layout and all the work that Brian's put into it has been phenomenal.
Yeah,
and allowed us to tweak it here and there and gone beyond an original concept to where,
it's a top. In my opinion, we haven't had our hands on the actual finished hardcover color book, but where it's at is top quality, and that's amazing, and that much of that is owed to Brian's work. It's amazing, yeah.
Oh yeah. Like we didn't know what kind of can of worms we was opening with that layout.
That's welcome to our first foray into design, develop, and then actual practical, putting this thing out there in a situation where it becomes a professional, practical material product that other human beings would hopefully, it's going to be worth their time and money, right? I mean, but it was our first foray, and I'll be honest, it was a fantastic experience. And amazing to involve so many people in the community and friends and family, for certainly from your side, family involved, and so it's just been amazing. Yeah. It's been a positive experience from get-go, right?
And I think
Brian's only had to get on us and scold us a handful of times, so it's been pretty,
and rightfully so, because he's in the thick of it.
Yo, dude. I mean, he's the one. It's like, he needs to. But it's also been wonderful that there's been zero ego, zero fighting about shit. I mean, we're just not those guys, right? He's easy to work with and pretty laid back, and it's been great, And even the little bit of stress, I think Brian's probably felt more than us. Is we put a deadline on it, because you were going to hopefully have something at the convention, but at the same time, it's he's trying to wrangle cats while, Brian could have had the work done like that if he didn't have to ask us, what the hell we wanted or how we wanted it, kind of thing, right? So.
Oh yeah, I'm sure when it comes around to his book, it's that process of learning something new.
Yeah.
I mean, because ultimately we're a bunch of amateurs approaching this. And, though our focuses each have been kind of different, and Brian, especially with the layout and having to deal with us and, through lines of communication with
it's really
print on demand.
Yeah. We're also dealing with a company that has, I mean, you can't just submit anything that they're going to print. You got to submit there's guidelines for all this stuff. And so it's been fantastic. And Brian, uber professional through all of it, and remarkable. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. And the first look at it, I had the same feeling that Jorian voiced when he saw it. He said, the first thing that struck him was the professional presentation of it.
Yep.
When you look at it. So that right there to me was a telling, just the icing on the cake or the cherry on top. And you get like that. Kind of felt like Clark Griswold at the end of Christmas Vacation. I did it.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right.
That affirmation.
If you could get your video working, you could show me what the Lulu book looks like.
Yeah, but I'll probably stay in this stasis mode of of that one frame for every hour is about my capacity for movement.
Okay.
But yeah, I know. How do you feel about the book and completing it? And because I know you touched upon it yesterday, and it's kind of exciting as far as like moving on from there. You know what I mean?
Well, how do I feel? Well, first of all, I'm a firm believer there's no such thing as perfect. That's an artist block. Many guys get caught in the block of perfection and they never finish anything. So first of all, I'm a firm believer you finish it. It's better to finish a project than not finish it. It's easy to complete a project by yourself, but very often then you're in a vacuum of. So what's been most rewarding about it again is being able to complete this as a collaborative effort with other people. Also, other people keeping you balanced from your own narrow focus, or whether it was discussion of game design and rules and what we were going to do there, and then the setting that I had to flush out from my Dragon Slayer version, and then freeing, being able to work and say, well, Dell, art, you got the vision for the art and the artist, go get them, go do that. Brian, dude, we're going to trust you on how you think the book kind of should look and lay out. And it's refreshing that I was kind of responsible for the writing and some of the game design elements with you, but we all had this role that really comes together to make this thing. It's not one guy's vision. It's fantastic, but it was collaborative in the sense that we weren't chasing our asses, wrestling with, the problem with collaboration is you never get anything done because you're collaborating and you got too many chiefs and not enough. You got too many chefs and not with a spoon in the soup, and the soup gets spoiled by too many people fucking with the soup. But what's cool is we all are responsible for a part of this recipe, and it comes together in this thing that it was fresh for me to see every time, because I knew what I wrote, but then to see the art, and then to see how Brian's putting the book together, and the style sheet, and the fonts, and so for me it was like, dude, this is like watching it come to fruition. It's truly collaborative, so that's rewarding as shit for me. And I'm this way. I was this way when I did my I made a documentary film about my father-in-law. It took us 8 months. It went on television. Yeah, it went on television. It was on. It took us 8 months, and I was more concerned about the product must be finished to share with the world and achieve than if it's perfect or not. And I'm just a firm believer nothing is ever going to be perfect. And as I was telling my wife a few weeks ago, what I think's perfect this morning, in 2 weeks I might change my mind about what I thought was perfect. So you can't chase perfection. You'll never finish any fucking thing if you chase perfection. So you chase quality, and you chase what you're trying to say and what you're trying to achieve, and you hope to do that at the highest level of quality. At least if you're providing a book, you want the book to be high quality. You want the product to be high quality. But I don't think anything ever do you shoot for perfection. And so for me, it's a relief just to be done, because we've talked about it, we've worked on it, we've play tested it, and there are people out there interested in it, waiting for it. So at some point, like raising a dog or a kid, or at some point you got to set the baby free. You got to say, hey, we're done, we're moving on, we're done with that, and let's get it out there and let the world enjoy it or hate it or do what they do with it. I feel great. I feel for me it was an accomplishment that I never actually planned. I've made a tabletop sports game. I've published it. I've shared it with the world. I've made multiple games. Many of them I've shared with the world. Most of them were tabletop sports simulators, right? Dice and cards and whatever. But I never dreamt that I would write RPG. I obviously develop homebrews, and I obviously write campaign worlds or create campaign books for my local groups and stuff that I've used online. But I would have never thought of even really publishing those. But I never really realized this might have been a dream I didn't know. And so to have this come to fruition was also a wonderful. It wasn't a bucket list thing. That before I die, I want to write and publish a role playing game. It wasn't a bucket list kind of thing, a role playing game. I mean, right? Confidence and exposure to other people and other game systems for the last 12 years. And then confidence that I knew, who I was and what I liked about gaming and what I wanted to present as a game developer and designer. Then it became this, hey, I might have something to say. And then sharing with you and talking with you and our relationship in gaming and friendship, you say, this would be better to have a partner, and our working together then made it a legitimate bucket list thing, made a legitimate thing we could achieve. And I think we're going to do that. And I think for the most part, people won't feel bad about buying it and owning it, right? And hopefully they'll enjoy playing it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I can concur with you. I think it kind of grew organically. And we didn't set out to do anything like this. It was just kind of a realization that we stumbled upon things that we felt we needed to express, and it kind of grew from there. Mm-hmm. And I'm with you about not shooting for perfection. You can freeze up when you do that, and that wasn't even really in my mindset so much, because, like you're saying, you get up the next day, you read it, and you go, I could have said this a little bit better. I could have did this, and that's really not the point. It was great to be able to work with so many people.
Yeah.
But to the point of doing it and where you feel satisfied, and like I was saying, even when Brian was like, let's go over it and let's make sure everything is, and getting to express that, oh, well, here is like just tidying up or just tweaking beyond the point that I thought we would ever get to do. Uh-huh. So it put a sheen on it that I'm sitting there going like, whoa. And then like Joy said, this looks really professional. I go, it does. Actually, it does.
Yeah.
But it was like none of this was thought of before. It was just like it grew, and people gathered and put in their expertise, and it just so it's a collaborative. It's definitely a collaborative thing. So and it's beautiful. You sit back, but it's like anything you create. It's not going to be perfect.
Right. Well, and that's why I endeavor. Like I said, I ain't worried about perfect, because what is perfect today may not be perfect. We used to do music. My closest friend and I wrote and copyright. I have 75. We have 75 songs copyrighted and registered in the name of our band and ourselves as our pseudonyms. And we did that for years. And there were songs that we did over and over and over and over and over, trying to perfect. And I realized at some point there's no such thing, right? Because we change on a daily basis. At some point you have to complete it and call it done. And I was 16 when I started music, so I had no idea what the artist blocks were. I didn't understand the things, the subconscious dilemmas people create, so they never achieve any art. They never create because they create these obstacles that aren't real. Right? I would love to be a filmmaker, but that means I'd have to quit my job, and I'd have to buy $100,000 worth of gear, and I'd have to devote my life. And I'd got to, those are all blocks people invent before they ever even try to make a movie, before they ever even try to shoot a video. It's like, dude, buy a fucking camera. I would do YouTube, but you get a video camera and you open a YouTube account and you give it a try. You can always get better, or you can always add higher production values, etc. But people invent all kinds of reasons why they never achieve or create. Or well, I would write a screenplay, but who's gonna buy my screenplay? Well, don't worry about who's gonna buy it. Write the fucking screenplay. Creation is what matters, right? And from that experience, the next screenplay you write will be that much better. And the next screenplay. So for us to think we're going to ever achieve perfection on our first run of doing a thing, when it's our first experience, you say, okay, it's going to be what it is. But the next thing we do, we're going to be that much closer to a better thing. Or maybe we're that much better. It's closer to perfection because we're more experienced. And we know from the ground level what we got to do to get, think about it. We were thinking landscaped. There was a lot of shit we were thinking that quite literally in the last few months all had to be scrapped. It's like now we know that even when I start writing the text, I'm already thinking about style formats, and I'm already thinking about all the stuff that, right, which when I wrote it, I just literally grabbed up my word processor, typed it up, and saved it in as a PDF, and you know what I mean? And it's like that. What do you mean? So it takes also somebody else's vision. Brian coming and saying, guys, there should be a style guide for this. And, guys, if you want it to look like all the other role-playing, not all, but if you want to look like a role-playing game book that's worth buying, you want to have some of this stuff in it. And I'm the kind of guy that says, dude, I want the grammar to be right, the math to be right, the system to work, and I want to make sure I explain exactly how this works and what I'm doing. That's as long as it's written right and it looks, and people, it's legible, and people, I'm not thinking about what it looks like, right? I mean, although when I get a game book like Forbidden Lands, the aesthetic of something like Forbidden, the tangible aesthetic, then the visual aesthetic of something like Forbidden Lands moves me. But when I'm creating, I'm not an aesthetic guy. I'm not thinking about the aesthetics of it. So to have somebody that's got more of an aesthetic eye, or an idea of what kind of art would go with this, or someone like Brian who says, I think this, this kind of style guide would work for what you're doing, and that's part of the collaborative thing. I'm not; those aren't my strengths, so I appreciate the collaborative thing, right? But I'm also not a control. I mean, I used to be as a kid. I was kind of in charge. I like to be in charge. I'm a leader, so to speak. But I'm not a control freak. I don't want to control people. I don't want to be the boss. I want to coexist, cohabitate, collaborate with human beings. But we still have a vision of what we're trying to achieve and why. And this has been a very remarkably rewarding experience. And remarkable because you don't even know if you're going to see it to the end. You don't even know how life's going to go. You don't know, and it took us so long kind of fiddling around, and then I was gone for 6 months with all kinds of stuff. And I'm just happy that we survived the long haul, right? And that we were still intact in the sense that Brian was still available to help us get it finished. It took us so long. At one point, I thought at some point Brian may not be able to help us finish it, and that was important to me that Brian was involved from the beginning to the end. And so it is a feat. Let's just hope that the feat is something that is interesting to a potential buyer or player or consumer, or just our peers that like to own these things or collect these books, etc. That it'll be a nice addition to somebody's library if they aren't interested in the system or Dark Ages or whatever, right?
What's amazing to me in like what the profession don't even factor in is the fact that we didn't set out to, let's make a role-playing game. We didn't do that at all. It was just that, wait a minute, how we're playing, the style we're playing in, we don't see it anywhere, so it needs to be voiced. So it was out of necessity that we had to build a game around it, and we just basically, it constructed and grew organically over the years as we played it and gave voice to it. So I feel satisfied that we are able to
communicate
the style of play. Yeah, and communicate it. That to me is that's the breakthrough moment when you go I'm looking at all these pieces. Yeah, I think somebody can get this now. And then you put it out there. So beyond whether it is perfect in any kind of aspect, it's the fact that I feel great. And just like I said, the icing on a cake is all the excess stuff, all the other stuff that just upholds that. And like you said, aesthetically, and whether it's pleasing and draws people in or however it contacts, it's still nothing but supports that voice that we was trying to communicate.
Correct.
About the style of play. And that is like a breakthrough. So I'm glad that we were able eventually, like you said, bring it out to where they can be represented. But it wasn't like, I'm going to make a role-playing game. It was
God, no.
There's something in us that needs to
well, I mean, and I had written Dragon Slayer as an OSR, I'd written an OSR that years ago, I don't know how many years ago it was. I said, Anthony, would you be willing to edit this for me? And he said, let me see what you got. I'll give you a quote. And I sent it to him, and that was a OSR. It was going to be a D20 OSR, but I also had Dragon Slayer, the D10 game that we were able to actually test play with Mark Kernow here on the channel a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
and from that little bit of design and system ideas. And that one game that we played, and then the conversation with Mark and you post-session on that video. I think we have a conversation about, Mark's observations, and I got great info and feedback from both of you. And it's like, okay, this might still be a thing. And then, though, when we started doing
26
a style. We started doing a style of play, both as character and as presenter. That I realized that this is something that for me is it's innovative enough that it might be worth trying to communicate successfully enough to make it into either a style book or a system book or something. And but you don't know. We never set out to, even when I came to YouTube in 2008 or whatever it was, 2010, my first YouTube appearance, I didn't come on YouTube to do anything other than share my experiences from my local sessions and share with the community. I certainly didn't come on YouTube to do anything other than that, right? And but there are people who set out to make YouTube a career or make YouTube a successful vehicle. It's never been the method to my madness, right? So
exactly.
And there's great relief because I am a completionist in the sense that even if what I complete isn't perfect, or even if what I complete could have been better, I wish I would have done it this way. Maybe I should have rewrote that verse, or maybe Flash Football I could have done a little more time on the field goal charts for Flash Football. Whatever, it's done, and it is what it is, and it exists in and of itself as that thing. And the next one I'll try to do better. But completing it as someone who believes creation connects me directly to God. I mean, I do believe my closest connection to God is through creation, and so I feel my happiness. I am my most joyful and happy as a human being when I'm creating, that's about the best way I can express the universal God. Right? Is create. I was put here to create ultimately. So I always tell people, don't worry about the result. Create, because you'll be happier creating. But the hang-ups are, but if I paint and it looks like shit, it's not about the finished product. It's about painting. Paint will make you feel good.
It's essentially about the journey. You know what I'm saying? And
create a painting. If it's shit, throw it away. But I guarantee you won't be bored while you're painting. You will be happy while you're in the process of painting. If the final result is ugly, then throw it away. Do another one, right? Creation is where you're going to find this kind of liberation, right? This
exactly.
The human potential. And so I'm that way, and I've never created anything that I could have said was perfect. I've never created anything that I can boast is better than anything else. But I've created, and I've completed, and I've shared. And creating is one thing, completing is big, and sharing is the final piece. I've said before, creating music was for me almost addictive. I mean, I was really addicted to making music. I mean, it really kind of fucked up my life. I would stay up all night making music with my best friend, and then I would go to bed with an hour's sleep, get up, go to work or school all day long, come home and do it again. I was living on 2 hours rest every night. I was addicted to making music, even if it sounded like shit. I was oblivious to whether it was good or not. I didn't care. I just wanted to make music. I just needed to express myself.
Yeah.
And once you do it, you complete it, and then you want to share it. You want to go on stage, and you want to give a cassette to your friends and your family and say, listen to this and enjoy it if you like it. If not, throw it away. I don't care. That's how much I didn't care whether it was particularly good or not. It was like, I'm doing it for some other thing. I express myself. I don't know. But this, of course, I'm 53 now. I'm much older, and this I'm better at than music because I have zero musical talent. So I was a lyricist. I wrote poems. Lyricist. I wasn't a musician. So I was hamstrung. I mean, if you don't know music, you're only going to go so far in music, because if you don't know it, if you can't play and write music and read and write music, and you are delusional if you think you're going to have a career in music, right? So I always thought I would be a music producer, the guy that was going to build a sound studio and bring bands in to record their music. I thought I would be a music producer. Because I loved music, and I still love music. But even that, you stop and say, well, how good a producer can I be if I can't read or write music? How good can you be when you have no music education, right? Yeah. Not very good, right? So at 24, I woke up and said, dude, there is no future in music for me unless I went to college and I learned music theory, which meant, a different path for me. But I've acted, and I've made a documentary film, and And I also never let my lack of experience stop me from doing something, right? My wife's father was kind of a historical figure, an icon in Colorado Springs, and the Discovery Channel approached him to make a documentary on him, and he turned him down. And years later, he came to me and said, "Would you do it?" Because he knew I was making videos and stuff and doing some video work for our business, our photography firm, and he was comfortable enough with me to do it. And so I made this 45-minute doc on my wife's father, and so that was, just his asking, trusting us to be the one to do it, was me and my brother. Because I asked my brother then to help me, so my brother and I did this project together, and that was an amazing experience because we went from making wedding videos and videography for weddings and graduations and stuff like that. And my brother had done some corporate stuff. My brother had done some work on some films, but this was kind of and we had hundreds of thousands of historical photos, archive of photos to go through for his, which then had to be digitized. So the same process of this is like, okay, we're gonna write a role playing game. Well, I can write, and I can get grammar help, and I can get an editor to help me with my grammar, whatever. But then, what's the technological side of that look like, right? Well, that's where you got to work with Drive-Thru-RPG, or you got to hopefully have a guy like Brian who's able to help you with the technical side of the book layout, and that's why you hire professionals. Anthony, line editor, and Brian handling the book layout and all the book technical bullshit that we don't know about the book part. Well, guess what? When we did this feature film, when we did this documentary, I had to go through. Literally, we went through hundreds of thousands of his film from his archives, and then we had to take those and have them digitized by a film company to make them into digital, so I could upload them into my editing software, so I could use those images in the documentary. And is it professional? It's amateurish because we were amateurs, or I was an amateur, right? But it was done, and it was shown again on television. It was shown again at his retirement. His retirement ceremony there in the city, and people got to watch that documentary film for his retirement ceremony. He donated his entire canon of work to the Pikes Peak Public Library, so you can actually go there and look at his work and buy prints. You can order some of his famous photographs, and they went on to digitize and canonize all of his other material. And record it there at Pikes Peak Library District. So it was a wonderful thing. But we knew he was going to retire. We knew he was going to have this ceremony, and we had a deadline. And having not tackled something like that, I didn't let that stop me from doing it, but also finishing it for what it's worth, whether it's good or bad, right? And I like to think this is the best thing I've ever done as a creator, but it is because it involved you. And Derek and Todd and Robert and Joy and Brian and Anthony and Tim and Eric. I mean, it is going to be the best thing I've ever been involved with in creation because it involved so many really good people. And I think that's worth more to me than just doing it alone, right?
Oh yeah, it's a shared experience, and I think that you've said it well. The whole process, the feeling that you get from completion of it, as well as the satisfaction. I don't know. It to me, there's a piece about it when it's going to drop that. I don't know. There's a joy. I just want to share it with others, and it's nothing that I really have to overthink or have a lot of anxiety about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud of it.
Yep.
So I think it'll be well received, especially to the ones who pick it up and maybe delve into it and play it.
And in my thank yous in the book, I say this: it deserves to be part of the gaming continuum. Our book deserves to be on the shelf and in the world of the hobby. And it is good enough and deserves to be there. That's That's all I can say about it. It's not going to be something where people go, Jesus, what a waste of time and money, right? No, our book deserves it, and it does deserve to be in the gaming hobby continuum. It deserves to, it has a spot, and it deserves to be there. And that's the best thing I can say about it.
I
the
think,
worst thing I can say about it is I'm what's the worst thing I can say about it? I can't think of a bad thing I can't think of anything negative.
That's
about
what
the
I was
entire
saying.
experience.
I'm like, even I sort of just felt like I was nitpicking because honestly, I didn't feel that it would get to this level of polish, of professionalism. I didn't anticipate it. But
Well, I
didn't really have an end game in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to get something out so we could express what we're trying to do here. You know what I mean? But
no, I mean, I definitely wanted it to be. I wanted it to be comparable to all our peers. When I say peers, all the other small developers, and it will never be comparable to Modifius because they've got thousands of dollars and a staff of 50 people or whatever they have, and there's giant companies. It's a different ball game, right? With the amount of time and the amount of resources, the artists, the writers, the quality of printing houses that they're. So in that sense, like, okay, right, I'm not under any delusion that it's going to match Modifius's work or Freelead's work, right? But it's certainly better than I would say. I would say what I've seen, and I haven't seen the book yet, but what we've got from our artists and Brian's aesthetic layout of the book, there's no doubt in my mind it's better than. Again, it's going to be maybe insulting to many, but I would say 70% of the OSRs I have seen or purchased over the last 15 years.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
way above much of that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was surprised about because I didn't really see the mark or the bar was like what is pretty much out there, and that's the only way I could see too until we started putting it together, and then like you're saying, everybody that we're working with, and then you see the final product and you go, geez, this is it exceeds my expectations, and then I have to back up and say, what were my expectations? I really just kind of it said what was typical. You know what I mean? I didn't expect more, but then I was kind of thrown aback or taken aback rather, and to see this, it just puts a smile on your face, and you go, I think people would enjoy having this on the shelf.
Well, and I'm proud of the fact that it is completely original art, original game system, original setting, original ideas, style. There's a little innovation there in how we're asking the GM to do a different role at the table to some degree, and
that was paramount to me was to test play it and make sure that it wasn't broken. That the game itself, what was the game aside from any kind of presentation of the game, was solid and able and it was able to represent what we were trying to say and give a voice to, and that was the big thing. But the rest of it is like, geez,
and I'm happy that we didn't stress over time periods. We didn't say, we want it done in 18 months. We just went to work on it. We just took our time, and we probably took a little too much time. But part of that's because I was gone for, I think, 6 months at one point, and we lost a little momentum there. And the writing was done at that point, but I think we were waiting for art, and there were a lot of. But the point I'm trying to make is we didn't also put a lot of stress on any of us. It was like, this is going to happen when it's going to happen, and we funded it as we could afford to fund it. Yeah. We didn't borrow money. We didn't go in debt for it, and we didn't ask investors to invest money in the thing. So it is what it is, and I think it's been well worth it, and I've learned a shit ton, just from Brian's feedback on dealing with print information and this shit ain't easy. It is not easy.
No.
From the blank page, from the first day I started writing Dark Age of Man, staring at blank space, to finding the artist, and then what are they gonna, how do you say to the artist, this is what I'm looking for, or I want to, or maybe you just buy certain artwork from the artist. I have no idea. Again, you were completely in charge of the artist and the artwork, etc. And it makes it one of a kind. It makes it unique. We're not an OSR. We're not a derivative of any other system out there, and all those things make it worth being out there, I think, right?
Oh yeah. I think people will enjoy the end product,
and as I said a couple of weeks ago, it's going to be a relief, because what's going to be like to get up in the morning and not thinking about Dark Age of Man? Where are we at in the process? How much closer are we to finishing this? What problems are we going to deal with today? And when it's done and it's POD, where people can order it and get it, and it's finished. I mean, it's 100% finished, and it exists in the world, and it ain't changing. It is what it is, warts and all.
Yeah.
We can take a break. We can breathe accomplishment and relief, and then we can start thinking about the next thing. And I've already been thinking about the next thing. I've actually written some stuff. And that's, we can talk about that next if you want a little bit about that. But I'm not certain how much you want to. We have Candlelight Games. We have some ideas. You and I have shared kind of ideas and maybe plans for future, what we might want to achieve or do. But we've never sat down, again, organized in a hard, as if we're a game company with a literally a list of what we got to make next. And when I'm done, I have no idea whether you want to work with me again. I have no idea whether you appreciate what we do. No. So it's like, okay, what's next, right?
Yeah, we got a good working relationship. Mm-hmm. Relationship, mm-hmm. And I think that as far as flavors and genre, there may be some different things that, of course, we're all individuals that we could get into, or there's preferences and whatnot. But I think a lot of it on things that we do enjoy together. It's not like our discussion the other day of dealing with space age, our future. Yeah, there's enough, I believe, to warrant us building something from that. Yes, and moving forward. So aside from everything, I think we can look into that, and to me at least, that seems. Yeah, I mean, Space Age of Man was always on my list of what we could do next. Dawn of Man, which I thought you pretty much had the system down. You just needed to send me so Dawn of Man was still something we could, finish. And and that may not see another thing when you're dealing with, that it may have a limited audience. You know what I mean? Sure. Well, right. I guess as far as big, correct, but but the system itself is something that might work. Whether you make it Stone Age, Paleolithic, or something else, the system is pretty cool. The system you've designed for that, the game mechanical system for that is pretty cool. It'd be a way. It doesn't have to be tied to Stone Age, Paleolithic. Game. No, but I mean that system there using the chips, the spark, or the tokens. You know what I mean? And I know there might be a little disconnect with immersion, but then again, the other thing I was trying to tap into, how just almost as a muscle memory side option that you're not really overly thinking about the chips, but the same way you might be playing poker and you throw in a couple of chips. You know what I mean? It's kind of to that degree. That's why I wanted to minimize that interaction, but also have an extension about this is the amount that I'm, investing or either retaining. Yeah. In a visual cue, but also was trying to at least do something. Maybe it's a little more active than just calling up a skill and rolling a die. It's more active. It's a more active sense of risk reward, and so it works. I mean, and by the way, not all role playing games have to. There can be immersion in any number of ways in gaming. So. And various types of immersion. But whenever you're playing like that, that's something that, when I peeled it back to Stone Age of Man, you're dealing with, there's hardly any list of professions.
Correct. Well, what are the skills? Stay alive, eat, don't freeze, and don't be eaten by something.
Gatherers or your medicine man or your protectors, and then you'll get a bonus chip for those for what you. But other than that, it's just the spark of trying to stay alive,
which really does complement the Paleolithic. I'm saying the system really does in a way work with Dawn of Man, and we've play tested one game and it worked great. So. I just don't know if that's what you would want to do for our next project.
Well, I see those games are at least forays into different types of system, or at least exploring different types of system.
Yeah,
and it gives me an example. Like I said, when I look at different technology levels or different eras, that what is most important to represent that era that you're in, and essentially, you want to boil it down. I believe we both have a minimalistic approach to where you can say, what is the core things that you have to work, that the people during this time or this genre would be concerned about, and then we have to express that through systems. So, what interaction with the system would you want or would be impactful for play and represent what it is? And when I peel back, like I said, the Stone Age, it is just that thing that. How much are you investing, or how much are you pulling back, or what are you trying to do?
That's right. Life force. How really much of your actual life are you putting on the line for this one moment, right?
Yeah.
Which you can imagine in the Paleolithic time, every amount of energy you expelled could be the end of your life, right?
Oh, yeah, it was definitely precious.
Sure. So the system really does express that. All right.
Yeah, whether or not you're expressing some kind of ingenuity or enlightenment or your your adrenaline or you're trying to stay alive. It's just that spark of life. You're trying to make something happen when you're just you against elements.
Right.
And you're clustered together with your small band of tribesmen or what have you.
Right.
And but so to really focus in. That was my thought, to focus in on the system and to explore that, like how a system ties in with representing for a player.
The genre,
representing their character.
The psychology of what we're asking players to be or do, along with the genre, how does it elicit? Because system, I've said it before, if you want to play a pulpy game, your system better support the actions of pulpy heroes. If it doesn't, you got a conflict. You've got a contradiction in genre and system, and they have to work, or it ain't pulp. If you can't be a pulpy hero, then it ain't a pulpy system, right?
Exactly. The system has to complement and support play.
Yep.
And in what aspect, whether I'm using chips to be viscerally, like at the table. Yeah. I guess I was trying to pull it back to like tabletop.
Yeah.
Example of like what you're playing in a short, simple thing for quick play and play expression.
Yeah.
It is to veer off and at least explore that.
So it's tangible. It's less about looking at math on a paper and you have tangible tokens in front of you. It becomes a visceral, tangible thing. I am expressing 4 of my life force, so to speak. Again, I'm playing fast and loose with your actual terminology. But I'm going to put in 4 of my life force here to try to defeat this saber-toothed cat, right? And you're literally pushing chips out there as opposed to looking at a character sheet going, okay, I've got 4 life force. I'm gonna add 4 to this die roll, right? I mean, it's kind of a different, and it does create this sense of live. There's no doubt it creates a visceral, tangible. Feeling.
Well, I mean, it's still a dice game in the effect.
Oh, sure.
It's like how many dice you're rolling is basically the wound listing. And honestly, whenever I'm developing something, I try to tie it into what we've already previously conceptualized with Dark Age of Man, so it can have like a family hereditary tie-in. So to me, the wounds were listed as like if you're going up against a cat with 6, that's 6 die.
Yep.
But the evens or odds expressions and the chips just reduce your opponent's positive for their positive.
Yeah.
Like if you have
Right.
that, if all negative results are beneficial for our successes for your opponent, then those chips overturn those and move them out of the way.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a die pool game in a way, but I also did that for multiple people when you pull the dice together when you're facing them. You know what I mean? When you got that, that's why it's important for 2 or 3 for you to bond together.
Yep.
Like if you're by yourself against that tiger, yet you have 2 other friends.
Yeah.
And you all can roll your dice against him and attack him in various ways.
Right. Right.
And use your chips to, overturn any kind of
Yep.
positive. That's all it is. It can turn dangerous really quickly.
Oh yeah.
But
and it should be if it's Paleolithic by nature.
Exactly.
It's nature.
Exactly.
I mean,
It
every single day, just foraging for food, right? Would be an event in and of itself, right?
It definitely, legitimately makes you want to have more dice to roll.
Yep.
With somebody on your side. I'm not going to attack. That's why, to me, when they're taking down that mammoth, there's going to be a team of them.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and there were.
You know what I mean?
Again,
yeah.
It wasn't Tarzan. It was a tribe.
Yeah. More dice to roll and more chances to overturn negative impact. So you could take them down, and maybe somebody
gets
perishes,
hurt. But somebody may get trampled to death, but at least the tribe will eat tonight, right? The tribe will eat for a few days. Right?
Exactly. Now I don't know how deep, with the genre and the time period and whatever that you could make, or how complex you could make it. That's why I kind of peeled it back to more of a short, and it was friendly to more chronicle or one shot.
One shot, yeah. Well, I hate to say it, friendly toward novelty style of role playing, where tonight let's play this game, and I won't say novelty role playing, but it would have been a novelty niche kind of game and system for one-offs, right?
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, one-offs, but like I'm saying, you could still do. I still wanted to tie it in like with maybe a chronicle. You could have 4, or something if somebody's adventures are a tribe as they were.
Migrating from the frozen waste to the warmer south.
Your random
migration, right?
Yeah, your random seeds or whatever. But the depth and breadth of the potentiality of like having a grand adventure on that scale is kind of, to me, it's not so far. But it would be a nice diversion to jump off of the Paleolithic. Right. That's why I was thinking about. If it was set in a game of 1 or 2 page games, short games, they could either be attached to or a bonus of or what have you of the game, or on itself. Yeah. Then it's fine.
Now, the Space Age of Man is the project that I've been was banging away at a little bit over the last few months, and then we talked a little bit the other morning, which fleshes out a little more of what you might be more inclined toward. Me too. We don't disagree actually on our idea of the genre of science fiction. Ironically, we are very, very, very similar. I'm not so ingrained in science fiction, though, that I would care. I mean, if our next project is a science fiction game, and I didn't see eye to eye on the exact genre sci-fi, it wouldn't stop me from that being, the project. The fact that we are really in very similar in what we think of science fiction and the style of IP science fiction setting we would want to do makes it easier even to think about a science fiction game. Science fiction would be the second genre I would be most interested in outside of post-apocalyptic, but fantasy in itself in many ways is post-apocalyptic. Even a sci-fi game can be post-apocalyptic, right?
That's what I was going to say. Pretty much everything is post-apocalyptic. I mean, as far as like you want to, because you'll have to delve into some kind of a ruined civilizations in areas. Yep. So to me at least, dropping in that aspect, like I was saying, if we go to maybe a far-flung space empire,
right,
that had fallen at least to some degree, if not totally fell,
right,
then there can be relics that you can exhume, or
yeah,
at whatever point, you know what I mean? If you're nothing but like thrown back into the dark ages of some ancient galactic civilization, then there's going to be things that may seem, you know, I don't want to say magical in effect, but technology that can actually be.
Well, sure. I mean, think about it.
Unearthed.
Think about, you know, I'm trying to think of an example. You know, to somebody that was at their, you know, that was 50 in 1960, and some technology that exists today that would seem magical to them. If we're just talking 60, in 60 some odd years, they would be dead, of course. But let's say you time travel back to 1960 with a piece of technology to show someone, it would seem almost impossible or magical. Well, imagine to the millennial today, or Gen X or Gen Z today, what a paper top of, you know, map looks like, right? I mean, that's old tech that would be almost as foreign to, you know, just to, you know, because you've got maps on your phone, Google Maps and GPS, and you don't have to read a map, right? You don't have to read a compass. You don't have to. So imagine just what unfolding a paper map with topographical elevation and shit on it would seem, right? That's a technology that's ancient, but oddly enough, just as bizarre, right? Like hieroglyphics. I mean, here we are, super sophisticated, and how many years did it take for them to find the keystone to understand the hieroglyphics, right? Hieroglyphics were nigh impossible until we found a keystone, and the keystone allowed them to then decipher hieroglyphics. So that looks ancient, but it's so ancient, it's above our heads.
Oh yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's so old, we don't fucking get it, right? Without a keystone, right?
Yeah, on either side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like in Dark Age of Man, we picked a location and a time period to where it can be expanded out.
Sure.
With Vikings, with what, and in a location that was highly contested over.
Well, and I wanted a pseudo fantastical, because I wanted people, if they wanted to do a political intrigue kind of Game of Thrones, they have all of that. You know, they have that kind of there, but at the same time, if they want to do more of a traditional like Dragon Slayer, where it's a vague village and a vague kingdom in which they travel to the king to, you know, to negotiate with the king about dealing with this fucking dragon, and they could do that, right? So I wanted Dark Age of Man to be able to do political intrigue or facing the dragon, right? Or a little of both. And more importantly, because you asked the GM to make a RCS that's relative and relevant, and on that could be dragon, it changes the session from political intrigue to dragon attack in one fell roll, right? So it can go from, hey, we got some political shit going on here. This is pretty cool. These sessions we got some stuff going on with the aldermans and then a dragon shows up in session 3 and reprioritizes everybody's priorities, right? But it's completely affected by the weighted chart, right? And so I think we achieved that with Dark Age of Man. I think we picked a timetable that could have enough. It has to have enough civilization that there could be kings and lords and political intrigue and social intrigue, but you could also go off to the north into the northern realms of the Welsh country and find the dark forest, find the dragons, find the, you know, all the things that are in German, kind of the German mythology, right? This, you know, the brooding dark forest, the thing, right? That is trope. It's trope.
Scandinavian, right. And everything, but you know, it's right with conflict, and that's what I'm saying. If you're dealing with, say, you have a space empire that had expanded to a point to where it crumbled or is crumbling at some degree, you would have to pick a location to where there is, or I would think you'd want to pick a location within that empire that would be would still have those elements that you're speaking about with Dark Age of Man. Maybe
yeah, right. Can you go
areas.
right? Could you go backward toward civilization, toward toward the empire that allowed interplanetary expansion? But the further you get from that empire, it's folding. It's remnants. Right. The closer exactly. I am to the city, the more gas stations, which means the more fuel, the more water, the more food, the more contact with, the need of batteries. But the minute I'm off into the Pacific Northwest looking for Bigfoot, and I'm 100 miles into the woods away from gasoline, water, food, right? But the irony is I'm only 60 miles away from the convenience store. But fuck, I might as well be. As well be 600 miles away. So think about it on the scale of how far the empire, how close you are to the planetary empire, the more we have civilization, culture, abundance of resources to repair ships, to fuel ships, to abide by the law. But the further out in those races where the empires receded, as we talked about a little bit in our text, it's receded from those tendrils to those systems or planets are now no longer supported by the empire. They become the frontier, as it were, right? Instead of the Wild West where we're adventuring into a lawless world, there would have once been law that's receded, right? Similar to your point to Hadrian's Wall, right? Hadrian's Wall became the boundary of civilization. They literally erected a wall to say, we're not going any more further, we're done, and this is just to keep those fuckers from... But we're not, we're not going to try to civilize those folks now. We're done. We're finished trying to civilize the world, right?
Push the Britons back.
Right. And eventually receded even from Britannia, right? And left the Britons with remnants of Roman, society and culture. And I love that shit. Imagine a sci-fi game similar, right, in nature, right?
Well, yeah. See, this, especially when you're dealing with sci-fi, and I know you like the grime industrial, and I did too, and even akin to like 2001. But so a technology range, there has to be differentials, and there possibly could be. Like in Traveler, you've got you have to contend with different technologies. But the thing is, whenever you're traveling through space. Like in that video I was going to put up that I told you that I threw up on Facebook, somehow got erased or taken down after 30 days, was the fact that I was talking about the alien thing that's going on around now. I had been hearing it for a few weeks, and I just got on there, and everybody has to realize that our closest neighbor to Earth is Alpha Centauri, which is over 14 and a half light years away from us, which is a light year is, of course, the distance light can travel in a year. So, the improbability of aliens visiting our planet, especially with the time dilation, the faster you go, if you're moving at the speed of light, in 5 years, it's going to be 35 years to pass on the Earth. So it moves a lot faster where you were. There's an old novel by Poul Anderson called Tall Zero, where they circumnavigate the galaxy and come back, and it's like 10,000 years gone on the Earth. The problem being, unless you have some kind of a folding thing, warp gate, which is totally
fiction.
You're talking about wormholes, and that's what I pointed out too. I'm like, the nearest black hole is even further away than Alpha Centauri.
Right.
So don't tell me that you're going to wormhole to us and then pop out and save that time. Right. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. Which is, and that's the danger of sci-fi. That's why it's science fiction. How much of it can be based and grounded in science, and then there's a fictional part where we assume warp drives, or we assume faster than light travel, or
what I did years ago, I think I was 20 something or whatever, I wrote a little story and sent it in, and it was basically a concept, a little bit, which I was taken aback when I actually read Watchmen. Whenever Dr. Manhattan got pulled apart, because I was using that same technology, that pseudo technology or whatever. Like of the expanding universe, and the dark matter basically pushing, or the repellent nature of matter. So I used that they were on a ship, and they had left off from the Earth using tachyon technology to basically communicate, for one. But the fact is, if you accelerate through gravity, and Frank Tipler had said this, which is his theory, like if you accelerate at a constant 1g, you can still continually have 1g. You're not going to be like squashed. And you accelerate at that point to where, relative to everything else, your speed is compounded on, and then everything else is moving slower. So you're not moving necessarily at the speed of light per se as we see it, but you're stacking as you're moving. Anyway, I had the ship leave from Earth to our Alpha Centauri, and just the repulsive nature of Earth almost pushing away the ship, and it turning in reverse, getting to a planet around Alpha Centauri that had that repulsive nature. So it slowed down by degrees until it finally got to the planet. But so many years had passed on those planets, and only so many on the ship that was a lot shorter, right? Even though it was kind of a generational ship, only so much time passed. But what had it left Earth before that ship was a terraforming ship that had plenty of time, you know what I mean, to terraform that planet. So when they arrived, it was terraformed. So, to be Earth ready. So I was going to suggest that may be how the Empire expanded.
Well, yeah, that's perfect. And that's perfect. That makes complete sense. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in a pseudoscientific way, but you know what I mean?
Unfortunately, sci-fi has to be pseudoscientific, because the closest thing we really have to science fiction is where we're living right now.
But,
I mean, physics has not solved the problem in 70 years, right? There's been no new work in physics for 70 years.
Yeah.
So we are literally stuck when it comes to physics. So say what you want. We are fucking retarded in the sense that we have actually evolved and done anything in 70 years of physics. So I would argue everything's science fiction at this point.
Well, yeah, it's just as far as in game, whenever you're kind of there's, unless you're doing a warp, unless we decide to go some kind of thing like that, which I've got a little design for that too. But as far as going from solar system to solar system, your characters may do it, but things may change. And obviously, some solar systems may be
imagine a game
defunct or in ruins, and other ones may be advanced more so.
Correct. And imagine a RSC chart for the naive narrator that when you're doing a solar jump or you're doing an interplanetary in a solar system, no big problem, right? We're talking a few months, a few years, no sweat. But we're doing a system jump. We roll that RSC to see what kind of system. Where that system at? It's a random seed roll to find out where the quality of that system is, or what's happened to that system. Okay.
Yeah, if you were going to make it something like I was saying, utilizing dark matter repulsion or whatever the case may be, however we say it, there's going to be maybe for your character not that much time, but things have passed. You won't be able to return to where you were.
No, it's Planet of the Apes. I mean, Planet of the Apes, the whole point is they return from Planet of the Apes to a world that's how many thousands of years in the future. Yeah.
Bingo. I didn't think of that before, but that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They leave and they think they're returning home, and they return home. The world is 1,000 years older than it was supposed to be. Right. Somehow
Rod Sterling is the one who implemented that.
Yeah.
So he's one of the screenwriters. It had gone through several, but he was one who put that in, which is brilliant. You know, Statue of Liberty sucking in that realization that, oh crap.
Yeah, we're home. We're home. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of that is what I'm talking about, which could be a positive toward adding to the setting. You know what I mean? As long as it don't just detract from the setting.
Yeah.
Or screw things up, I would say, for the most part, inside of a solar system itself.
Right.
And they could be totally different than another one you may go to. But the investment that the characters have to make to jump to another solar system or to leave to another solar system would be substantial. So it couldn't just be done on a whim. But then again, It depends on what we want to do. We could have jump
Right.
gates, or we could have whatever.
Right, you
But-
could. Yeah, we can. Again, it's being science fiction. We can
Yeah.
we can advent or use derivative technology from other science fiction that's already made these assumptions about warp drive or faster light travel or whatever. Right, jump gates, whatever. Right. But for me, science fiction has to involve specificity, which then implies skills and professions.
Well,
Right.
that's what I was trying to drive at, because, I mean, if you have more of the travel without jump gates, without instantaneous jump, because if something like that still exists, there could be enough shared technology that none of these systems themselves would fall into disrepair, unless a war, they're on the opposite side or what have you. Then there might be more situations like that, but there's more cause for isolation if the distances that you have to traverse is done traditionally. And the way I just, the example I was talking about, the travel, is still hypothetically plausible for a character to do that, but things will change. So when you leave, it's an investment, but you could get to a system that is radically different.
Yeah.
Either, but it's more isolated systems to where they can be broke down, and they end up being a system almost like we have the Petty Kings in Dark Age of Man. They operate on their own.
Yep.
Within that system and shared technology. And maybe if it's ruinous, then they're uncovering things from previous generations that were there. But for whatever reason, that system went down the toilet.
Right.
But there could be others that are more alive. You know what I mean? So we don't.
But if we're talking about game design now, to complement this setting, this idea, this setting, as far as working out the details of that will come. But then we're talking about character gen would be based on, as I wrote in our text thing, I'm thinking no attributes. They would be based on professions and some assumptions of skills under those professions instead of attributes. Right? So you might have 3 professions and all of those are weighted to a certain percentage. And then there'd be some assumptions of what you can achieve in those professions, or we actually itemize skills. We create skills, but I think a sci-fi game almost demands that level of detail.
I think it does. It's something we can explore.
Right.
I'll have to say right now I need to get off, and I'd love to pick this back up.
Oh, we will. We're in no hurry, man. Like Dark Age of Man, we just do what we do, brother.
Yeah. But I think we're on the track of the right. We're both focused on the same, towards the same end goal with this.
Yep. Oh no, yeah, and I mean, for our next big project, I think it should be a sci-fi game, but
and
little projects, I suppose, like one-page RPGs, things like that. That's where we can fool around with some other ideas, but.
Concepts and ideas and break off in there, but I think you're right. And as far as like finding this, what I'm saying, amongst this empire of varying technologies and maybe differences in travels for the most part, it needs to be more so isolated, where we're not hopping from system to system.
Yeah, I was thinking more of what if it was a interplanetary. Mostly where there's rings of planets but I mean the idea of
we still could do intergalactic.
That just doesn't and I don't think it has to, because again, once a game, and I was thinking about Traveler, I don't know, there may be people who have been playing Traveler for 40 years that literally have gone all over that Traveler map, but dude, I think most people spend their time in a Traveler campaign among a small cluster of I don't I've seen the Traveler map. I'm like, dude, I suppose you could have adventurers over here, but this idea that they're shooting all over the fucking galaxy or all over the universe is probably not.
I mean, they're changing locales from planet to planet.
Yeah.
You can have a desert. That's not logical itself. I guess what I'm saying is I'm a little bit more of a hard sci-fi buff. That a lot of my suspension of belief is kind of broken whenever have to deal with things that are more fantasy, or space opera type.
Correct, right.
If it is what it is, I can accept it. But if you put me in a situation
I accept Star Wars for what it is. It is fantasy in space. It is Star Wars is fantasy.
Yeah, you put me in a low-tech situation, more gritty. It might be on the outskirts of a larger kingdom, and we're not financially secure enough to travel. That's fine. Mm-hmm. That's one way of approaching it, and kind of keep it there. And like you said, the more in system you go, and it may be more coherent for people. You know what I mean? But and we'll have to decide.
Well, I think the game is better when there are some limits. I mean, I was thinking about like Simba Room.
Yeah,
and I know you got to go, so we won't keep going here. But Simba Room defines its space pretty restricted.
Yeah.
The main core book it's about the Davokar, and it does at least provide background for the factions and the cities and the lore, but the game is about adventuring into the dark forest of the Davokar and dealing with treasure hunting. But I'm sure there have been more books to come out since to allow Simba Room to go other places or whatever. But I think it's always wise that your core system, your core rules feature. And then hopefully your system, your game mechanics and system feature what you're trying to achieve at the table. And that should also support the genre. And it should support whether we're doing maps and minis and tactical combat, or whether we're doing in theater of the mind, in character as character play, or we're doing shared narrative, or we're doing, right? So I think that's, again, from our vast experience of playing games and reading games and growing up in the hobby, and now having made our own, we're not starting completely without already thinking about the entire concept of the project. It has to fit into this tight space. So defining the science fiction within a certain boundaries it should not be a negative, right? To define the setting as.
Yeah,
it wasn't for Dark Age of Man. Defining the setting allows Dark Age of Man to be everything it can be. If you don't define it, who the fuck knows what's going to happen or where it's going to go, and that can be daunting or bad for a table, right?
Well, to me, like Dark Age of Man is around like the representation of England, but things were going across the globe.
Yeah,
and this in effect is like a template for the solar system.
Yeah.
If we find one system in there that's kind of what's going on in that system is in the location, and there's enough conflict, and it can tangibly touch maybe from here to there other systems, whether go Oriental or go whatever, that we pick a sweet spot to really explore.
That's it,
and then expand out upon, and that would be that flavor, but just the overarching, like maybe like I said, the spread of the colonization of humans via the means that I said earlier, out to a certain point.
Yes.
And the potential for isolation whenever that fails.
Yeah, when the Empire's fingers recede and leave and give up the ghost, as it were, of Hadrian's Wall.
And nobody really knows. And
Correct.
Then it goes kind of a dark age a little
Correct.
bit when these systems has been colonized.
Correct.
Then you're working from that, and you're uncovering tech.
Correct. Yeah.
Like you said, from the past, but it's actually more technologically advanced than people realize because it's not utilized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But anyway, that's about where it might be a sweet. We just have to figure out what capacity. Like you said, political intrigue. There's all kind of different things. How much do we want? But I don't know if we need to do a bunch of system hopping. That still may be viable.
Sure.
But it's something for us to consider.
Yeah.
But
I think we're in complete agreement on the kind of sci-fi, the quality of book, the quality of science fiction, and I think we're also in agreement that I prefer a game system that's going to support theater of the mind, in character, as character, role playing, right?
Yeah,
I'm not really interested in the maps and minis game, or
Well, if it's not the soul system, our system, we could easily make a system in the future of Earth or whatever.
Right.
I'm trying to say that if we want to have it like a unique system, we throw out there, it would have been generated from Earth.
Right. It would be what's left.
Off.
What's left of when Rome receded from its outer regions.
Exactly.
It left its mark upon a culture that was allowed to grow out of Rome, out of what culture was left. There were remnants of the culture that created it, or that usurped it, but is no longer connected to the current culture of Rome, right? So
kind of like Battlestar Galactica, in a way, trying to get back to
right.
But anyway,
yeah, it makes complete sense. If right, so setting wise, that will be. We'll have to drill into how you would present,
and then we can create a system,
and you have to
be fun
because,
in a setting.
Yeah.
That'll be different and more explorable,
right?
And than just
where they start, where they create their characters, and from what culture they create their characters, doesn't have to be the limits of where their stories go or where their characters go.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Is that what you're saying? So, because you can't create a character if you don't know the world they're ultimately going to be relating to, and then the system, of course, that they're going to use to succeed at action. To succeed at tasks.
I agree.
And then, of course, the mystery lies in what? Leaving home, or dealing with what's at home. Right. That's everything. That's westerns. That's fantasy gaming. That's the reality of it. And how you want to go about the narrative space, the genre space of that narrative. Whether you're interplanetary teleportation or whatever the science fiction fantasy shit you come up with, not you personally, but one might come up with, it becomes either accepted by the players and the characters that are going to play this game, or the suspension of disbelief cannot be achieved and it won't work. And that's where you and I are going to probably be in complete agreement about our suspension of disbelief. We're both in the same. I think we're both going to have the same problems with the same fantasy in science fiction, right?
Yeah. It needs to be something that I can, understand and feel like is foundational, grounded, and then I can play off of that, and we can create a system, a new system, not Earth system, with a star, whether it's a red dwarf or a binary system or whatever, and then a habitable zone around that, and then build from that. And see what we get, and and just be human centric, and
right, and what would that culture look like? That's left as the Empire recedes from that dwarf star system or that dwarf star planet. What would that human culture look like living on that planet, that dwarf star, right? Exactly. And how would you create characters that can function in that system? But they might not be staying there. They might be attempting to leave that planet, which therefore they encounter the mystery that their skills and things will hopefully help them survive, right?
Yeah, that's where if anybody wants to spawn off and make their own system for the game and be in different areas, then you could do that. Yep. So, awesome. But this has been great. Yeah, I'll get off here now, but we should continue it at some point. And sorry, I gotta.
Oh no, man! And like I said, I was telling my wife, priority one. We got to get the book, done to the publisher and ready to go, so it's finished. And then we take a break, and then we can start worrying about what next and take our time on this. But I wanted to have a podcast and just chat with you about the book and about where we're at and what's going on. And hopefully you're doing well. And but we're in no hurry. There should be no stress on us. The priority one is getting the book. I think you've already got Lulu set up, so we'll be able to get the book to Lulu. Right, and then we'll have Drive Through RPG, so people will be able to go to hopefully their favorite supplier to get the book, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
And I'll be running at Scarab.
That's right.
Martin Luther King weekend down here, and then so that should be fun. But it'll be nice to have it out and be able to share it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. All right, my friend, and I'll talk to you between then. But that's awesome. I can't wait to hear your tales of that as well.
All right.
All right, brother.
Will do. I'm sure I'll have plenty.
Have a good night, man.
Take care, man.
All right, bud.
All right. Bye-bye.